The Minister of Education, Malam Adamu, who gave the directive, also admitted that he has failed Nigerians over his inability to eradicate the menace of out-of-school children in the country, in keeping with his vision. Well, this is the conversation that has generated a lot of controversy, with some persons saying that, well, he did wrong by saying that the sex education should be removed from the school curriculum, and there are those who are saying that he did the right thing. Now, this cuts across, a lot of facets of life. Talk about health, talk about maybe spiritual, talk about culture. These are some of the things that have been explored, and today we have a full house, and we'll be discussing this particular all-important issue: should sex education be taught in schools? Something is right here with me.
Yes. And
I also have, of course, the amazing presenters. We have Chioma Amaribulam. Thank you for joining us today. And yes, it's good to have you join us too.
Thank you.
Mercy Emmanuel.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Okay.
Good morning.
So yes, we'd like you to start the conversation.
Oh, okay. It's quite debatable and controversial when it comes to policies like this. Should it be taught? Should it not be taught? Over time, what you've had, medical doctors, health practitioners, advocates, is that children should be taught the basics, at the very least, the basics, so that they are mindful of their health, and how they comport themselves. You've also had counselors over time say the same thing, that children should be, kept abreast of the latest when it comes to sex education and all. Now, the question will be, should it be, entrenched in the school's curriculum? That's where, the big debate is. But isn't the school a citadel of learning that shapes children, not just academically, but also morally? Remember that teachers also stand as local parents and guardians for these words. So you can always have that debate for and against it. At the end of the day, what exactly is learning? Is it just the academics in terms of arithmetic, and spoken English? Does it also involve a bit of religious teachings, like we have in terms of religious teachings, like your CRS, Christian Religious Studies, or your Islamic Studies, also in the syllabus? So if we can have religious, if we can have academic, that those who are saying, why can't you have a bit of sexual education within the curriculum as well, so that the child has a wholesome, learning process? And that would require that it will cut across both sociocultural, political, historical, and academic, spheres. I think at the end of the day, we need to look at what's more important for the child in terms of the child's growth. You want a child who is not only, culturally knowledgeable, but also understands all other facets of life and can match up with their peers anywhere in the world. And sex education is not just important in terms of their health. It's also important in terms of their emotional life, sexual life, religious. It cuts across everything. So the question will then be, should it be in the, curriculum or not? I think Mercy should begin.
So I'll just start from where you stop. You were relating it to CRK. Just the way, I would say, just the way parents will tell their children about God, love God. This is Jesus Christ. I'm not comparing sex education to Jesus Christ, but I'm just saying, just the way you try to instill religious teachings into them. Sexual education should start from the house. As a parent, you tell your parent, this is this is that. Don't hide behind walls and say it's kokoro. Don't hide behind bars and say it's kokoro. Don't hide behind bars and say don't let a boy the opposite sex touch you. So the teaching should start from home. It should extend to school and even to churches. I remember those days when I was in teenage class. We were taught sex education. We were taught what is masturbation. We were taught family planning in church. That's the Bible church I worship with them. So I just believe it's not just, you should not just leave your child to go out, and because if you don't teach them, they will learn it either whether you like it or not.
Okay,
so
all right.
So this brings back to those days when our parents would say, change the channel, don't watch that part, don't watch, and trust me, they've seen that part, they've seen that picture, the part, they've seen it over and over again. That's just like the obscene time.
Even if they've not seen it.
So I don't really think that is an issue when parents are trying to say, maybe they're showing an obscene you know, nudity, yes, sex scene on TV, and you're trying to prevent your children from seeing that. Yes, they might have heard about it, yes, they might have seen it, but you shouldn't still let them just see, just like seeing your child viewing porn, and you're like, they've seen it before.
So it's not porn now. It's not porn now. You see scenes of where a lady, maybe a man and a woman is kissing, or maybe a lady is just trying to twerk. You should explain this to them. Tell them this is good. Save it for them. Save the information. This is the good one. This is the bad one. Because trust me, they will watch it outside. And they watch and trust me, the hands are like this. They are watching.
Looking at what both of you have said, I think it depends on the parent, how you want to raise your children. I mean, you can't say this is how you should raise your child. If you think telling them don't watch it works for you, and then you tell them don't watch it, and then you try to explain to them these things are not, if you're a Christian or a Muslim, these things are not godly. I understand that you see these things out there. I mean, that's even an avenue for you to start probably another round of teaching. And if it's something you have done over time, I think when they get, I mean, it could be the family joke. Mommy, should you watch or should forward? You know, it could become a family joke and all of that. But what's important is that, like what she said, making them understand that this thing, it's, apart from the fact that you are young, you should also know that from our belief, this should be done within the confine of a home, a family. If it's not a husband and a wife, it should not be done. I think that actually, you know, that helps, and everybody understands that this is what we're talking about. And then you said something about you were in a church where you guys were taught family planning. Now, I like to look, you said it was a teenage class.
Teenage class.
Now, there are those persons who would say that, I mean, the information is good. It's good for you to give out the information, but there are those who would say that by teaching them, you're empowering them and telling them how to go about safe sex, when as Christians, they're not supposed to have sex until they are married. So now, that's another conversation.
So when you're talking about sex education, what do you think? What do you think is sex education?
Well, it depends. It's age.
You're trying to prevent them from unwanted pregnancy. You're trying to tell them, okay, this is what this thing is. If you go this way, your education will come to a pause, to be on hold. That doctor you want to be in the future, you might not be able to be that doctor, because at that point, you'll not be able to go to school again. You are pregnant. You're already a woman. That's unwanted pregnancy. Then again, you are preventing them from sexual transmitted diseases. That's one of the reasons why you're educating them about these things. See, when you become a teenager, at a teenage age, maybe when you clock 18, according to Nigeria Constitution, you're already an adult.
Yeah.
So, and you're still a teenager.
And you're responsible.
At that point, you are responsible for. So, at teenage age, at 18, am I correct?
18.
At 18, if you're taught family planning, it's not it's over curriculum now. It's not out of place. You need to know these things. So I'm going to narrate. You want to say something?
Yeah, when I was in school, I had a lecturer. He was my supervisor, my project supervisor. So we used to talk and all that. So one day he told all of us a story about how, you know, he used to tell his children about sex and all that, sex education rather. But when he had twins, when they were about going to school, university, he was like, he sat them down. He told them, don't let any man touch you, you know, all this stuff. Then they were supposed to go like probably the weekend. Then on the Friday, he went out and he was like, yes, he has tried his best. But what happens if they actually end up having sex with a guy and they are scared to tell him and they don't just know what to do about it? What is he going to do? And he was like,
step for that.
He was like,
he then told her that, okay, if at the end of the day, you know, you do it and you feel some kind of way, please tell me.
Because they will proceed and go, and
you can also use some drugs. You also show them names of drugs they can also use too. So I was just like, is this not double standard? Are you not at the end of the day now telling them, okay, that means I can still do it and use this drug to prevent the pregnancy?
Is it not double standard? I like you to talk on that. I mean, you're the one who likes that. I mean, you like arguments. So yeah, the logical one. Bring your logic to this.
Argument. You're putting me on the spot. Here's what I think. I think part-time, per age, you advance the discussion.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You do not limit it. You know, there's always that boundary at first based on age, but over time you begin to stretch those lines. So for example, I mean, let's even take for instance, we know quite well that the rate of growth and development differs from individuals. You have some ladies who probably just begin to get into puberty in that sense from maybe like age 14. That those who have rapid growth, that by age 9 you can easily see the physical features right there. We've even heard of reports that at age 9 some women begin menstruation. So the rate of growth differs. Now when it comes to sex education, let's assume you start by age 7 or 8. If you notice, 8 is that late? We're going there. That those will tell you 8 is even too late. That those will tell you it's probably too early. It should be like maybe when they are 13, when they're getting into again, it depends. Now, different people. So the kind of education you give them regarding sex and everything that it entails, sexuality and all of that, at age 8 or 9 will be different from that same conversation maybe by age 13, 14. Yeah. It will be different by age 16, the whole sweet 16 kind of talks. So it will be different. Now, when you say, for example, you talked about he spoke to them and at some point he had to realize, you know what, there's the possibility that for all indications, they will still go and do this thing because maybe the attraction they're getting and all of that, and depending on how the child is in terms of trying to explore, being inquisitive and all, you have certain children that you teach them well, they're grounded, but they are just inquisitive. They want to learn on their own.
They want to explore.
They want to explore. Not because you've not done it, you've not done your job.
But because they're adults.
They may not even be adults. They may be 15, 16, but they just want to explore. They're not up to 18. Remember, there's a Yoruba adage that you train your child, the way the child should grow, but the child will also develop himself or herself. In other words, when you train your child, at some point the child also has the responsibility to retrain himself or herself to that high ideal. So here's the thing: if you realize that your child is someone who is inquisitive, likes to explore, or possibly, I don't know, but going by that narrative you just gave, that's possibly the scenario, and your supervisor said, you know what, let me just
balance this conversation.
No. For a child who is 17, almost approaching, adulthood, that discussion will probably not be out of place, even though it seems extreme. But you can't have that conversation with a child who is 10, 11, 12. Do you understand? But for a child getting to on the verge of adulthood, that may not be out of place. At the end of the day, there are various aspects of sex education. And what you are just trying to ensure is that the child is not gullible or vulnerable enough to, the wolves out there.
Okay, my question really is, if you say you are a believer, and
again,
your children, let me land on the question, please. You say you are a believer and you're training your children to grow up in the way of the Lord. Now, when you also begin to talk to them about family planning, isn't that double standard?
I think religion has its place, culture has its place. When you see this one, that's its own special place. Teaching them about sex education does not mean
no, we are not saying
about family planning.
Exactly. Contraceptives
is not contradicting the Bible teaching you already installed in them.
How is that so?
Okay, so
when the Bible doesn't support it.
So I want to start from that Yoruba adage. I was trying to remember. I've been trying to remember it, but I can't. See, our parents, they will try their best. Parents will try their best. It now depends on that child. If you want to be omoburuku. So for me, I knew about contraceptive as early as when I was in JS2. My mom is a nurse.
Oh, okay.
So I you talk of sex, talk of contraceptive, talk of abortion. So, but I'm not saying, and my mom tried her best. Then thank God for the kind of church I went to. I knew about this thing from a very tender age. I have friends that they were exploring. But when I get to school, when they mentioned this, I was just say, don't worry, I know it. I already know it. I'm not saying I'm that perfect being, but I did not. My mom tried her best. I did not become a bad child because I did not want to become a bad child. If I want to go into all sorts of things, I know how to control myself.
Okay. Let's talk about appropriateness now, because some of the people, I saw this particular article where some persons were really praising the fact that it has been removed, and they were giving their own points or their thoughts. And some of them were talking about age appropriateness. So what's the appropriate thing to teach part-time? When should you start? What should you do part-time? So let's talk about that. Now, when we talk about the curriculum, the basic school, that's primary 1 to 5 or primary 1 to 6 as the case may be. So at that point, what exactly should you be communicating? What form of sex education should you be instilling in your children?
So I have sisters younger sisters, not really blood related, but then I call them my sisters. And when she was in nursery, I think nursery 1 or nursery 2, she came back home one day singing this song. I can't really remember, but if you touch me, yeah, I will say no. They started when they were in nursery school. Yeah. Why? We have cases of 8-month-old babies being molested, being raped. We have cases of 3-year-old girls being molested and raped, and they would go home and they're not able to say anything. Yeah. Why? The man or the woman has already told them, if you say something, I'm going to beat you, or I'll deal with you, or they can even go as far as saying you would even die. I'll kill you. You understand? And they've instilled fear in these children. So starting at a very, very young age is very important. It needs to be instilled in the school's curriculum. I don't support the Minister of Education now saying that it should be, abolished. No, I think it should be instilled from nursery school. You have different people, probably different people come in, experienced people, professionals, come in, tell the children. They might not use the exact words because they're still very tender. They might not really understand. While growing up, my mom never used I don't want to mention the name, penis, but then she used to use the word. Well, she used to use the word manhood. And she actually left me confused for a very long time because I really couldn't understand what manhood actually meant. Manhood. She wouldn't say it. So she said man. When I was going to primary 1, she told me, don't let any guy sit down beside you. If he sits beside you, you'll get pregnant. Touch you. When I got to school, my teacher, every time they used to change our seat, I'm like, no, please, I don't want Demi to sit beside me. I want to sit beside. I was just, but because she didn't know how to communicate properly. Well, that also helped me. You understand? So at every stage in life, every stage of a child's life, there should be ways you should advance, as you said earlier. You should advance, but then let them know about it from a very young age. Let them know that if uncle touches me here or auntie touches me here, it is wrong. I should say no. I should speak up. I won't be scared. Let your children be bold. Let them be able to come to you, and they won't be scared that you would backlash them or you would snap at them or something. Let them be bold and have that confidence that if they come and talk to mommy or talk to daddy will stand up for them. You understand? I had an experience when I was growing up. I think I was 8 years old. So there was this young lady that used to make my hair. So she was very close. Her command was very close to my house. It was a duplex. So I went to their house one day, and then her elder brother was around, but he was downstairs. So the staircase to the house was like behind the house, and they had the well behind. So I had rapid growth, you understand? I was like 8 or 9, but I already had, my bosom was already out. And then I was trying to climb the staircase, and he pulled me down. He was like, oh yeah, kiss me. If you don't kiss me now, I'll throw you inside this rail. Being a child, I was very confused. I didn't know what to do. When I kissed me, if you don't kiss me, I'll throw you inside the rail. God so kind, she came down. She just started coming out of her room, and that was how he left me. I was very scared, but when I got home, I still told my mom, it was not funny.
I told your mom because your mom has been
having that conversation.
Yes, and it was not funny. She got guy arrested. He slept in prison cell now for like I think 3 nights. But my dad was so relaxed. Was like, mom was like, you stand up and do something. Mommy did not do anything. Mommy stood up. She went to the police. She called police, officers, and they arrested this guy. So let children know
other people.
Yeah, so let children know from a very young age. Let them know about it.
You see, the thing with appropriateness when it comes to age again is sometimes it's warped within one's beliefs. You came from the angle of religion now that as a believer the Bible is against contraceptives, so during
it's against contraceptives. I said against premarital sex. So you mentioned I don't have a problem with
she said family planning rather. Now again, the thing is that individuals who limit the scope of the education to their words because of their religious or cultural beliefs, that those even within, as you've said, within the Christendom that still believe that family planning shouldn't be a thing. I've heard some sermons like that.
There are some traditions that are even against it.
There are some traditions are against it. Some religion. Well, I won't say religion, but some individuals believe that family planning has no place in Christianity. So for such individuals, if they're going to teach, you can understand that there will be a limit to the scope of that education they will give to their words. Now, when it comes to appropriateness, it's the same thing. That those who will tell you you're too small, you shouldn't know certain things. You know, it limits the scope. The question then will be, how does this help the child to become not just knowledgeable about this issue? You understand? Again, this projection of one's, you know, social-cultural or religious beliefs on another person, another child, especially when the child is in that formative years of teenagehood, on the verge of adulthood, may not help. It may not help. You know, there will always be arguments for and against it. I think at the end of the day, appropriateness would now depend on the individual. What will be appropriate for me will not be appropriate for you. What will be appropriate?
Standard.
Again, it's not just a standard.
So,
just wrap up. For those who have the belief that family planning has no place in Christianity, and they're Christians, for example, who also...
That's just a few, just some
well, I'm just saying, but there are people like that, you can't rule them out.
Sure.
There are those who, it's not from the religious angle, but they're just extremely cultural and traditional folks. They tell you, know, our tradition, our culture, our this, our that. So there's a limit already, and the so-called appropriateness when it comes to age is also relative to them.
Like I said, he likes logic.
So I think the teaching should even start from preschool level. Ask me how.
Okay.
How? So you start from telling your toddler, don't touch yourself. Because sex education is very, very broad.
Yes.
Talk about reproduction, talk about masturbation, talk about puberty stage, a lot. Yeah. So you start from telling them, don't touch yourself, because they don't know. Maybe they saw Sunday touching himself in school, and you see them at home touching yourself. The moment you see them touching themselves, you caution them.
Stop it.
You stop them. So from gradually you tell them, when you go out, maybe when they start talking, maybe from age 2, you tell them, don't touch yourself. Then maybe when they start talking, age 3, don't allow the opposite sex. Now you
who said the opposite sex.
You know, thank you. The opposite sex. Thank you. Even same sex. Don't allow anybody touch these sensitive areas in your body. They don't have breasts, but they have nipple. Don't allow anybody touch these sensitive areas in your body. Then from gradually, you start explaining this thing to them. Then I'm wondering why Adamu wants schools to remove it.
Because
there are some persons.
So we still have, like, when you get to senior secondary class, you still have subject like biology. And in biology, they will teach reproduction, whether they like it or not.
But again, you have to...
But you know, reproduction class those days, people will just come to class and laugh. When I was in secondary school, most of my classmates would not really understand. Okay, maybe we're just catching fun during that class. But I think it should go beyond catching fun. It should be educative, not entertaining now. It should be educative. Like,
you guys made it entertaining for yourself.
No, it's not. I think it's the teacher.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I'm saying. If our parents played their part and teachers played their own role,
very well.
Yes, we understand that we're not coming to class to catch fun. We know this is not comedy. We know they're educating us, they're teaching us on the right path. All right,
so still talking about this particular issue, I told you about an article I read where some persons were probably applauding the minister and giving, one of them said she actually went to school to check the curriculum and that she was shocked at the level of exposure that was being given to these children. She felt like the things that were being taught at that level was too much. And then she also talked about the fact that there's also that likelihood that some randy teachers might use the opportunity, you know, to probably do one or two things. She even gave the example of one of the teachers that had always been looking at a particular girl. He could use the girl for all his demonstrations and stuff like that. So I want us to talk about that angle also, the professionalism that is being deployed when these courses, you know, are being taught in school.
So as I said earlier, I made mention of bringing in professionals. So there should be standards, there should be levels to teaching these children. So if you're having to handle, if you have to handle 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, you won't give as much information as you would give to 16-year-olds, to 14-year-olds. So that school in particular is at fault. So she shouldn't let that affect the whole curriculum in the whole nation. No, that issue should be addressed with the school. So they should get to explain to younger children in ways they would understand without exposing them to so much information. You understand? And also get to talk to the adult children or the teenagers in ways that they would really understand and to still, you know, imbibe those values and standards in them. So I don't still support the minister's stance on this? So that you should be educated, though.
So whether they remove it from the curriculum or not, I'm telling you now that sex molestation, sexual molestation will continue.
That's the truth.
So, but the major thing, there should be more sensitization. There should be more campaign. There should be more education. Teach these children. Let them know it, because they will learn it. They will see that uncle will teach them. That auntie will teach them, whether I will like it or not. And
how are we even sure they've not started touching our children?
Oh, so they will teach them whether we
have to be very finicky with your
not.
children, really.
Sometimes no family members.
You can't be perfect.
Even family members.
Yes, you can't be perfect, but you just have to, a very large extent, you have to, you have to always be available. I mean, whenever you're around, you always have to just put your eyes to the ground, like, ensure you.
I get the point. I can assure you that those who even went the extra mile, and yet
CCTVs and everything,
and yet something still happened. You know, the issue is, as I said, it takes. Yorubas would say there's it's a child has a biological mother, but it's the community that basically raises the child. It takes, that communal sense of living to really raise a child, because parents will play their part quite all right. You have teachers, in schools who are meant to do theirs, as well as local parents and parents. You have guardians, you have churches, leaders in church religious centers generally, who should also play their part in ensuring that the child grows well. Now, when you look at the place of parents teaching and all, being mindful, observant, and all of that, yes, you can do all of that. Why do you think sometimes we have debates, about, oh, why did a pastor's child, turn out this way, or why did an imam's child turn out this way? It's not because they didn't do what they needed to do in terms of training or even praying over these children. It's true, because we get unnecessarily religious sometimes when it comes to issues like this. And that's the truth.
Shy away from this kind of discussion.
Exactly.
They shy away from it.
At the end of the day, even the child would also have to retrain himself at some point. As I said, that's where, the talks of you training a child the way he should go, it won't depart quite on years, but the child should also train himself himself. What I think is, over time, as we've said earlier, the lines of boundaries would be stretched per age, per time, when it comes to educating them. Limiting the scope, I don't think it's the right thing to do, because the kind of children we have, that are so inquisitive, so knowledgeable, they're great children. If you do not teach, as you said, they would learn from that uncle, from that auntie, from their friends.
You're even teaching your own at home. Parents be teaching our own at home.
Exactly. So these are the issues. I think the education has to be all-encompassing, from home, religious centers, in school, so that the child has a wholesome idea.
So I'd like to ask you a question. So please, I want to say something. Okay. With the advent of technology, internet,
exactly.
You don't want them to watch a particular scene on TV. You don't want to tell them at home. But you give them to watch cartoon. They even watch a cartoon on your phone. It starts from there. So I think we should just let them know all these things. Then teach them to speak out. For a girl child, for a male child, when the opposite sex or same sex touch you, touch your sensitive area, teach them to speak out, because most of them are scared, just like Chioma's story. And we've heard a lot of stories like that. They are scared of, I don't want to talk. Then maybe 2 years, 3 years later, they will not speak out when the deed was already done. So please, the major thing is educate them on these things. Tell them to speak. Don't be scared. He said he will kill you, but he cannot kill you.
All right, let's say this.
Okay.
It's a question. I just want to throw this in. What about situations where parents inadvertently, introduce their children, babies, to some of those things? I say inadvertently because, it wasn't intentional. They didn't intend to introduce. Maybe mommy and daddy, they love kissing a lot. Like, they're always kissing, always holding hands, always hugging. And then the child is beginning to also love, like a baby. Mommy always kissing daddy. How do you help that child, not to take that outside?
So you say kissing or pecking?
Oh. Pecking. Pecking, definitely.
I think pecking is not bad.
But when the child begins to, make it like...
No, pecking, like you say all these Western people, hug and peck, is not bad. I think it's just a form of greeting.
But generally speaking, inadvertently.
Kissing. I think there are some things we should not do in the presence of our children.
Okay.
In as much as we are teaching them about sex education, we should not now shine into their eyes and say, okay, I don't even know. But there are some things we should not do in their presence. If you can kiss over and over again in their presence, then maybe you move to the next stage. You don't understand? then maybe you'll be very comfortable that even when they are around, the next thing you start touching yourself. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when it comes to kissing, it should not be done in. If I'm talking about pecking, let's get it straight.
By pecking, you mean pecking on the cheek?
On the cheek.
Or the lip?
On the cheek.
Peck on the lip.
No, on the cheek. No, not on the lip. On the cheek. So there should be boundaries. You don't do this in front of your children.
So what if the child has started taking up that attitude?
Then such parents should stop. Where's camera? Such parents should stop. It's inappropriate.
Okay.
Very, very.
You know, you talked about in schools the fact that lecturers can teachers can take advantage and all
the teaching and all.
The same way, if you do not train a child or educate the child, you can also have instances where uncles, aunties, neighbors can also take advantage. So why not train the child and let the child get the needed knowledge and grow or redevelop himself or herself, rather than take the laxity of, oh, no, if I teach, the child will be exposed, and in that sense, you now leave the child more vulnerable. As I said earlier, there's so much a parent can do, yet so little, because at the end of the day, the child also needs to be willing to imbibe some of these lessons.
But parents should try their best.
Definitely, they have to. That's not debatable.
And so it's
ramping up very quickly.
So it's beyond don't allow a man to touch you. It's beyond don't sit beside a man. It's beyond if a man touch you, you will get pregnant. And it's beyond don't watch this thing on TV. Explain this thing to them. Let them know.
No, exactly.
Let's see the information.
Let's just take a break, really.
All right.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back.